Good evening and welcome to Election Night in America 2022. The fight for Congress, the battles for governor, and the future of the Biden presidency are all at stake tonight. Right now, voters across America are casting votes in one of the most important and consequential midterm elections of their lifetimes. I want to welcome each and every one of you from the United States and around the world to EPO Studios. My name is Ryan Guest, and we are counting down the seconds now until our first poll closings coming up at the top of the hour, 7 p.m. on the East Coast, where we will get our first clues at how this historic night will play out. It could be a major turning point for the Joe Biden administration and the balance of power in Washington, as Republicans eye retaking control of the United States Senate tonight. To do that, they only need to gain one seat in order to break the current 50-50 tie. Remember, Republicans must win at least 51 seats to win a majority, while Democrats only need 50 as they hold Vice President Kamala Harris's tie-breaking vote. And while the GOP has lauded their chances of taking a significant majority in the United States House of Representatives all year, they have been noticeably less confident about their Senate chances. And here's why. Similar to 2018, where Democrats made major gains in the House but failed to win control of the upper chamber, the roadmap is simply more difficult for Republicans this year. Retirements in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina have left them vulnerable in those key battlegrounds, while controversial Republican nominees in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia have trailed behind Democratic incumbents in polling and fundraising. Election Predictions Official specifically identifies 8 battlegrounds tonight, with the states of New Hampshire and Wisconsin joining those previously mentioned. And what a stage that sets. Democrats 46, Republicans 46, with those 8 races effectively determining the balance of power. All 50 U.S. states will get to have their say tonight in federal, state, and local elections. It's a heated fight between the two major parties, Republicans and Democrats, and we are covering the U.S. Senate tonight. So sit back, try to relax, and we'll be back after the break with our first poll closings of the night. We have arrived at our first major poll closing of the night. We're only seconds away from polling stations closing statewide in 5 Senate races, including the key battleground of Georgia. The polls are about to close in most counties located in the Eastern time zone across the state of Florida as well. And we've got some projections to make right now. And now let's take a look at what all of this means for the balance of power in the United States Senate. Despite 3 Republican race calls here, compared to just 1 for the Democrats, Democrats do hold 37 seats to the Republicans' 32. We will be closely tracking how many, if any, seats each party flips throughout the night, as given the current 50-50 split, any net positive gain by the time all the votes are counted will be enough to award one party a majority. Keep in mind, however, that the president's party has lost seats in the Senate in 13 out of the last 19 midterm elections. And except for then-President Donald Trump and the Republican Party in 2018, no first-term president has gained seats in the Senate in over 70 years. And we're coming up on another critical round of poll closings just moments from now here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That is when polls close in the battleground states of North Carolina and Ohio. Both Republican incumbents have retired, leaving those key races open and perhaps opening the door for Democrats. We've got a couple of key race alerts coming in right now. Let's take another look at the balance of power in the countrywide Senate map that is beginning to fill in here just a little bit. North Carolina and Ohio join Georgia as races that are too close to call at the moment, and are filled in dark gray. The states colored in red have been called for Republicans, and of course blue states have gone to the Democrats. States colored in white have no U.S. Senate seat up for election this cycle, while states in gray do, but their polls are still open. Precincts are about to close in a whole bunch of states here at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's one of our major poll closings of the night, with initial results expected in 8 states: Alabama, Connecticut, Florida, Illinois, Maryland, and Missouri, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, and the Keystone State, both in name and practice, Pennsylvania. Some polling locations are also closing in North and South Dakota, as well as Kansas. This is a huge moment right now that could make or break Democrats and Republicans' chances tonight. Let's take a look at what all of this means for the nationwide race for control of the Senate. Democrats are projected to win 3 more seats in the Democratic strongholds of Connecticut, Illinois, and Maryland, raising their total to 40, while Republican wins in Alabama and Oklahoma give them 35. Florida, where polls are now closed statewide, as well as Missouri, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania, join Ohio, North Carolina, and Georgia as states that remain too close to call at this hour. Polls are also still fully open in 15 states, including the key battlegrounds of Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada. It's 8:30 p.m. on the East Coast, and polls are now closing in just the central state of Arkansas, although we have a couple of projections to make right now. Let's take a peek now at the updated Senate map. Republican victories in Arkansas and Missouri raised their total to 37 seats to the Democrats' 40. Neither party has made any gains thus far, and results have stayed par for the course, as all of the key races remain too close to call. And this is a big moment. We've got our first key race projection of the night. In Florida, we can now project that incumbent Senator Marco Rubio has been reelected to a third 6-year term in the Senate. He has defeated Democratic Congresswoman Val Demings by a margin of 8.1%. Florida is usually considered one of the swingiest states in statewide elections, but Rubio was elected by over 7% in 2016, and after Trump made gains with Hispanic voters in the state in 2020, and won by an even larger margin in 2020 than in 2016, the question quickly became whether Rubio would reach a double-digit victory this year. Ultimately, he did not, but Republicans have won the first key race of the night, and now have 38 seats to the Democrats' 40. And we are also now just less than 10 minutes from the critical 9 p.m. poll closing, with the battlegrounds of Georgia, North Carolina, and Ohio, as well as Pennsylvania and New Hampshire, remaining too close or too early to call. Nine more states' polls are closing, including Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, and New York, as well as North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. This is the last major poll closing of the night here at 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and we have a whole host of projections to make right now. With 4 more projected wins, the Republicans now have taken a 1-seat lead at 42 over the Democrats' 41. Polls remain open in only 9 states, while another 8 races are currently too close to call. Among them, Georgia is in a virtual tie, with Warnock and Walker both sitting below 50%, which, remember, would mean that they both advance to a runoff election scheduled for the first Tuesday of December. One candidate needs to reach at least 50% to keep that from happening, just as it did back in 2020. On the other hand, Democrats currently lead in Ohio and North Carolina, although much of what has been tabulated so far consists of early and absentee votes from the urban areas of the state, which were expected to lean heavily Democratic. A lot of the Election Day vote is left uncounted, and those should favor Vance and Budd, respectively. We are now able to make a call in Iowa. Incumbent Senator Chuck Grassley has been re-elected to an 8th term in office and will become the most senior senator in the United States Senate upon Patrick Leahy's retirement. Grassley has defeated retired U.S. Navy veteran Democrat Michael Franken by 14.5 points, which, along with his 220,000 vote margin of victory and his 57.2% share of the vote, are all the lowest marks he has had since first being elected to the Senate in 1980. Despite polling indicating that a majority of Iowans did not want Grassley to run again, he will return to the Senate at 89 years old, with the potential of turning 95 before the completion of his next term. Following that projection for Grassley in Iowa and those key race updates in New Hampshire and Pennsylvania, here's what the balance of power is looking like in the Senate. Republicans now lead by 2 seats over the Democrats, but neither party has flipped a race thus far. All potential pickup opportunities for either side remain too close to call, with Democrats currently ahead in Colorado, Arizona, and North Carolina, and Republicans are ahead in Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Hampshire, Wisconsin, and Georgia. Of course, we don't expect some of those results to hold, as different vote types from different geographic areas continue to tally their totals. We have reached the top of the hour, 10 p.m. here on the East Coast, and the polls are closing statewide in Nevada and Utah, as well as in parts of Idaho and Oregon. Nevada is expected to be an extremely competitive race and could play a central role in whether Democrats manage to hold their majority in the Senate tonight. Incumbent Senator Mike Lee's projected victory in Utah once again adds to the Republicans' total. The GOP now has 44 seats to the Democrats' 41. Incumbent Senator Maggie Hassan has taken the lead in New Hampshire. And her Democratic colleague, Michael Bennet, seems to be performing well enough in Colorado. Republicans, on the other hand, are looking increasingly likely to hold on in Ohio and North Carolina, as the more rural parts of the state, as well as the Election Day vote, are moving the statewide numbers in their direction. The races in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Georgia are still far too close and early to call. We've got a big call to make right now. Author and venture capitalist J.D. Vance is projected to have won the U.S. Senate race in Ohio, defeating Congressman Tim Ryan. This is a key but expected call for the Republican Party as they hold on to the seat currently held by retiring Senator Rob Portman. The bigger question coming into tonight was Vance's margin and whether he would outrun or underperform Donald Trump. He is projected to defeat Ryan by 6.5 percentage points and 350,000 votes, which is below both Trump's 2016 and 2020 numbers, but still a conclusive victory in a race that Democrats could only really ever dream of winning. Congressman Tim Ryan fashioned himself in a similar vein to Senator Sherrod Brown, which makes sense given Brown is the only Democrat to win a statewide election in Ohio since Barack Obama in 2012, and the only Senate Democrat to win since 1992. And despite Ryan leading in a few polls here and there, ultimately Ohio's partisan lean was too much for him to overcome. EP official can also make a call in Colorado. We project that Democratic incumbent Michael Bennet has won re-election to a third term in the Senate. Bennet wins by his largest margin to date, 9.6% over self-described moderate Republican Joe O'Dea. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell pledged he would support O'Dea in Colorado, but just 2 years after Joe Biden carried the state by 13.5 points, that support ultimately could not materialize in a substantial manner. And with those projections, both parties are inching closer toward where we expect them to be tonight. Republicans have 45 seats, Democrats 42. The GOP also tentatively leads the popular vote by 2 million votes, though there are several Democratic strongholds across the Pacific Coast yet to report any results at all. Speaking of the Pacific Coast, wins there for Democrats, plus an expected win for Republicans in Idaho would pull the Dems even with Republicans and set the stage for the races that are still too close to call to determine the balance of power. It's about that time. Polls are about to close in 4 states out west, including key Democratic strongholds down the Pacific Coast in Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, as well as the traditionally Republican state of Idaho. It's 11 p.m. here on the East Coast, but 8 p.m. out there, and we've got some key race projections coming in right now. That brings Democrats within one seat of Republicans. It's 45 to 46. 7 races are still too close to call, and the polls are yet to close in Alaska and Hawaii. New Hampshire, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada are the states everybody has their eyes on at the moment, with Republicans likely needing to win 4 of those states to win a majority, while the Democrats probably only need 3. In our first major projection of a battleground state tonight, we at EP Official can now call New Hampshire for the incumbent Democrat Maggie Hassan. The Democratic Party has held on to one of their more vulnerable seats as Senator Hassan is re-elected to a second term by over 4 percentage points, defeating U.S. Army veteran Donald Baldock. Often lost in the chaos of the 2016 presidential election, and understandably so, the Democratic Party managed to flip this seat by a slim 1,017 vote margin when then-Governor Maggie Hassan prevailed over Republican incumbent Senator Kelly Ayotte. Now running as the incumbent, Hassan dodged a bullet when both Ayotte and present-day Republican Governor Chris Sununu opted against running for the Republican nomination. A self-proclaimed bipartisan fiscal conservative, Hassan ran closer to the center than Baldock and led every poll in the race. We can also project that Congressman Ted Budd has prevailed in North Carolina's U.S. Senate race. In another high-profile election, Republicans hold on to the seat being vacated by retiring Senator Richard Burr. Budd, a U.S. representative for North Carolina's 13th congressional district, defeats former Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, Cheri Beasley, by 3.3% and less than 200,000 votes. The state of North Carolina has now voted Republican in every presidential and Senate race since 2008, and has routinely broken Democratic hearts since. Despite that track record, though, competitive polling numbers and a considerable fundraising advantage gave Democrats hope once again, but they fell short once again. The Tar Heel state sends another Republican to the Senate, and they maintain a 1-seat advantage over Democrats. It's 47 to 46. Those projections also take 2 more states off the board, leaving Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona to decide the Senate's composition over the next 2 years. As things stand right now, Democrats lead only in Arizona, while Republicans hold an advantage everywhere else. We're ticking closer and closer to yet another poll closing, the penultimate poll closing. In fact, here at the top of the hour, where voting is about to end in non-contiguous America, statewide in Hawaii, as well as in parts of Alaska. And we've got a projection to make. In Arizona, incumbent Democratic Senator Mark Kelly is performing as well as he needs to right now in Maricopa County, while the race in Wisconsin continues to narrow as well, with incumbent Republican Senator Ron Johnson's advantage now below 50,000 votes. Democrat John Fetterman is closing the gap with Republican Mehmet Oz in Pennsylvania, and we expect that race to narrow significantly more as more absentee ballots roll in from the Philadelphia area. And finally, we are still awaiting several more new batches of results in Nevada, while the race in Georgia looks increasingly likely that it will be advancing to a runoff. That projection in Hawaii evens Democrats with Republicans. They now hold 47 seats each, with 5 states too close to call and some polling stations in Alaska remaining open. We've got a call to make right now in the state of Arizona. Incumbent Senator Mark Kelly has won the U.S. Senate race, and he will serve his first full term in office after winning the 2020 special election. Kelly has defeated Republican Blake Masters, a venture capitalist and protege to billionaire Peter Thiel, by more than 70,000 votes and a margin of 2.5 percentage points. Kyrsten Sinema first established a foothold in Arizona for Democrats by winning the 2018 Senate race, and they have now won 3 consecutive Senate contests, as well as the 2020 presidential race in the Grand Canyon state. Ultimately, Mark Kelly ran a more defensive campaign than most Democrats this cycle, but he did lead in virtually every poll of the race, so this was considered a relatively good bet for the Democratic Party. We can also and officially project that Georgia's U.S. Senate race will head to a runoff, scheduled for December 6, 2022. Incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock will have to do it all over again after being first elected to the Senate in a 2021 special election runoff. As things stand right now, former NFL football star Herschel Walker holds 48.7% of the vote to Warnock's 48.1%. But since neither candidate reached 50%, Georgia's election laws mandate a runoff election be held between the top 2 vote-getters. You may also remember the regular Senate election, which was held parallel to the special between incumbent Republican David Perdue and Democrat Jon Ossoff, also went to a runoff after Perdue came less than 0.5% shy of reaching 50%. And then Ossoff went on to win that runoff despite trailing Perdue by 1.8% in the first election. Whether or not Warnock manages to pull off a similar feat in what will probably be a less Democrat-friendly environment remains to be seen, but the projection in Arizona lifts Democrats ahead of Republicans to 48 seats, just 2 shy of the 50 they need to maintain control of the Senate. They could either win in 2 of the 4 remaining states left uncalled, or one of them plus the Georgia runoff in January, while Republicans will need wins in Alaska and Georgia at the very least, plus at least 2 of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Nevada to reach the 51 seats they need for a majority. We have finally arrived at the last poll closing of the night. It's past midnight here on the East Coast, and the polls are closing statewide in Alaska. And we've got a projection to make right now. This is a big one. We project that sitting Democratic Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman has won the U.S. Senate race in Pennsylvania. Democratic primary voters touted Fetterman as the perfect candidate to flip this seat, and he's ultimately pulled it off, defeating Republican Mehmet Oz, commonly known as Dr. Oz, who becomes the latest celebrity figure to run an unsuccessful campaign for public office. Fetterman is projected to win by 2.2% and almost 150,000 votes. Fetterman's campaign effectively ridiculed Oz as a carpetbagging elitist, out of touch with the regular voter in the state of Pennsylvania, and he consistently pulled ahead of Oz heading into Election Day. This is, of course, a key victory for the Democratic Party, as it gives them some breathing room in the races that remain too close to call. They now only need to win one of the uncalled races to reach the 50 seats they need for a majority, and as it stands right now, Democrats will hold at least 49 seats in the Senate next year, while Republicans will have at least 47. The GOP currently leads in Wisconsin, and whether it be Murkowski or Chewbacca, they should win in Alaska, which may give them 49 as well, and thus it could come down to Nevada and the runoff in Georgia once again, folks. EP official can now make the projection that incumbent Republican Senator Ron Johnson has defeated Democratic Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes in Wisconsin. Johnson had initially planned to retire in 2022, but later accused the Democratic Party's policymaking as making his re-election bid necessary. His incumbency clearly played a major role in holding this seat for the GOP, as Johnson managed to squeak out a victory over a strong opponent in Barnes. He wins by a margin of less than 1% and just about 25,000 votes. Wisconsin, along with Pennsylvania, was viewed as a top pickup opportunity for Democrats this cycle, but they fall just short. And Republicans, on the other hand, do indeed still have a chance of taking back the Senate because of it. And on that note, we have a couple of key race updates coming in right now. And EP official now projects that the Democrats will keep control of the United States Senate. This is an important win for President Joe Biden, as his party will keep control of at least the upper chamber of Congress. On a night we certainly expect the Republican Party is to make gains in the U.S. House. Republicans knew coming into tonight that they were facing a very difficult path to 51 Senate seats, due in large part to the positioning of each party's incumbents. And now let me tell you why we are ready to make this projection. Take a look at this. EP projects Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, the incumbent Democrat, will be reelected in Nevada. She is projected to defeat Republican Adam Laxalt, who served as the state's Attorney General. Cortez Masto will remain in the Senate and perhaps the most vulnerable Democrat on the ballot this year. She defeats Laxalt by a little over a percentage point and just under 15,000 votes. That is just about half of Joe Biden's margin of victory in Nevada in 2020, but Democrats have now won every presidential, Senate, and gubernatorial election in the Silver State since 2014. The Democratic Party's recent issues with Hispanic voters contributed to the sense of vulnerability for Cortez Masto here and incentivized Republicans to spend more money in this race. But the incumbent Democrat just barely holds on in what was a must-win seat for the Republican Party, as we take a look at the updated Senate map now. Democrats have reached 50 seats, enough for a majority with the vice presidential tiebreaker in their favor, while Republicans trail behind with 48 seats, but they have to feel good about their chances to crawl back up to 50, with Alaska expected to be called for either Republican incumbent Lisa Murkowski or Republican Kelly Chewbacca once those ranked choice votes have been tabulated, and then in Georgia's runoff election scheduled for December 6th. We finally have a call to make in Alaska. Republican incumbent Lisa Murkowski has defended her seat from her Trump-endorsed Republican challenger Kelly Tshibaka, and she will return to the Senate for a fourth six-year term. Murkowski has solidified herself as one of the more moderate Republicans in the upper chamber of Congress over the last decade, and her cross-party appeal proved to be the decisive factor in this race. Let's take a look here at the first round of results. Again, this race was decided via ranked choice voting between the four candidates that advanced to the general election from the nonpartisan blanket primary. So, in this initial vote tally, Senator Murkowski received 47.4% of the first place votes, just 2.6% shy of reaching 50%, which would have automatically made her the winner. Kelly Tshibaka received 41.7%, and Democrat Pat Chesbro received just 8.6%. The fourth-placed candidate, Republican Buzz Kelly, received just 2.3% of the vote and was dropped after the first round as he received the least first-place votes. Thus, his second-place votes were awarded to the other three candidates, but did not push any of them above 50%, with 1.6% going to Tshibaka, 0.7% to Murkowski, and less than 0.1% to Chesbro. And that means that Chesbro was removed in the third round and had her second-place votes distributed between Murkowski and Tshibaka. As expected, an overwhelming majority of her supporters voted for the more moderate Murkowski as their second-choice candidate. And here are the final results. Murkowski received 56% of the overall vote, easily defeating Tshibaka's 44% in a major blow to the right-wing bloc of the United States Senate. Former President Trump pledged to campaign against Murkowski following her vote to impeach him the second time, and the Alaska's Republican Party's efforts to successfully recruit a challenger to Murkowski have proven unsuccessful. Nevertheless, Republicans are now projected to hold at least 49 seats in the Senate, and whether we return to a split 50-50 Senate in 2023 will once again come down to a runoff in Georgia between Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker. Democrats will of course hope for a repeat of what occurred in 2021, while also recognizing that the national and state political environment is much different than it was post-2020. EP official can project that Republican Herschel Walker has defeated Democratic incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock in Georgia's U.S. Senate runoff election, handing the Republican Party a major win after failing to win control of the Senate for a second straight election cycle. A former star football player at the University of Georgia, Walker came under fire throughout this campaign for having no real political experience, but it ultimately did not prove to matter as he rode his high favorability ratings even among moderate Republicans, as well as both former President Donald Trump and the Republican establishment's support for his campaign to a very narrow victory. And after coming less than 1.5% shy of reaching 50% in the regular Senate election, Walker has defeated Warnock by 0.8% in this runoff, and by a margin of almost 30,000 votes. Warnock was unable to overperform the same way he did in the 2021 Senate runoff, and lower voter turnout in this one is likely a major reason why. And with that projection, we now have our final 2022 US Senate map, and despite Democrats flipping Pennsylvania and Republicans in Georgia, we return to a split 50-50 Senate once again. That is all for this 2022 election night. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think of this map and these predictions in the comment section down below. I do want to stress, however, that this is just a prediction as of September 8th, 2022, and things can and will almost certainly change by election day. But with that said, feel free to like the video down below if you enjoyed it and hit that big red subscribe button if you haven't already. It's free and it helps me out tremendously. Check out more videos here, and until next time, I wish you all the best. EP out.